she has won the right to rest peacefully in Texas waters.
Howdy and hello, I'm Travis Davis, Vice President of Ship Operations, Battleship Texas Foundation. Today is November 11th, 2021, Veterans Day. In honor of all veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces, past, present, and future, we're going to explore the history of Veterans Day, how it originated, how it was celebrated, and how it became known as Veterans Day. At 11 a.m. on November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, an armistice went into effect on all the battlefields across the world. This ceasefire was the effective end of World War I. World War I is one of the most destructive and deadliest wars fought by mankind. It introduced new weapons on an industrial scale that were unparalleled in their ability to kill and maim. Indirect artillery fire, machine guns, flamethrowers, and chemical weapons. And in the fixed positions of trench warfare, this produced enormous casualties. The war caused the death of upwards of 22 million people, military and civilian, and the wounding of 23.6 military personnel. The nations of Europe bore the brunt of the casualties. France alone lost 1.4 million combatants, with 3.2 million wounded out of an army of 7.2 million men. Britain 1.1 million dead and 1.7 million wounded out of an army of 5.8 million. France lost 10% of its total male population during World War I. Aside from the shocking number of casualties, the entire map of Europe was redrawn and 4 aristocracies fell. Though the United States entered World War I in 1917, 3 years after the war started, its entry was pivotal in ending the war. The United States would send Battleship Division 9, which included Battleship Texas, to join the British Grand Fleet in Scotland, further solidifying the Allied nations' domination of the sea, and would contribute significant amounts of war material to the Allied war effort. From the summer of 1917 to the end of the war, American Marines and soldiers would fight in major battles like Chateau Thierry, Belleau Wood, Saint-Mihiel, and the Meuse-Argonne Offensive. The United States would lose 117,000 men and 204,000 would be wounded. Because of the unprecedented globe-spanning nature and the large number of casualties, World War I would be called the Great War and the war to end all wars. It is with the last sentiment that Allied nations, including the United States, commemorated 11 November as Armistice Day, a day to honor the sacrifices and to remember those who died in World War I, a day of remembrance and reflection. For some of our audience, Armistice Day evolved into Remembrance Day, or Remembrance Sunday after World War II, a memorial day for all their nation's service members lost, not just those who fell in World War I. We remember with you. For the United States, Armistice Day was a day to honor the sacrifices of Americans in World War I and rededicate the country to the cause of world peace. President Woodrow Wilson issued the first Armistice Day proclamation on 11 November 1919, stating, "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service, and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the Council of Nations." The original concept for Armistice Day in the United States was for parades, civic meetings, and a cessation of all business in the country for 2 minutes at 11 a.m. every November 11th. On Armistice Day 1921, an unknown American soldier who died in France was interred in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. The unknown soldier represents all service members who died but cannot be identified. The unknown soldier's state funeral, 100 years ago today, consecrated the sacrifices made in World War I and the nation's dedication to peace. President Warren Harding's eulogy captured the national sentiment following World War I. Here are a few excerpts from his eulogy. "Ours are lofty resolutions today. As with tribute to the dead, we consecrate ourselves to a better order for the living. With all my heart, I wish we might say to the defenders who survive, to mothers who sorrow, to widows and children who mourn, that no sacrifice shall be asked again." As this panorama of unutterable destruction visualized the horrors of modern conflict, there grew on me the sense of the failure of a civilization which can leave its problems to such cruel arbitrament. Surely no one in authority with human attributes and a full appraisal of the patriotic loyalty of his countrymen could ask the manhood of kingdom, empire, or republic to make such sacrifice until all reason had failed, until appeal to justice throughout understanding had been denied, and until every effort of love and consideration for fellow men had been exhausted, until freedom itself and inviolate honor had been brutally threatened. Despite the deeply moving and ceremonial funeral of the unknown soldier, it wasn't until 1926 that Congress recognized Armistice Day and passed a joint resolution stating, "Whereas the 11th of November 1918 marked the cessation of the most destructive, sanguinary and far-reaching war in human annals, and the resumption by the people of the United States of peaceful relations with other nations, we hope we may never again be severed. Where it is fitting that the recurring anniversary of this date should be commemorated with thanksgiving and prayer and exercises designed to perpetuate peace through goodwill and mutual understanding between nations. And that the President of the United States is requested to issue a proclamation calling upon officials to display the flag of the United States on all government buildings on November 11th and inviting the people of the United States to observe the day in schools and churches or other suitable places with appropriate ceremonies of friendly relations with all other peoples. 12 years later, in 1938, Armistice Day became an official holiday in the United States. A year later, World War II started. Through World War II, Armistice Day seemed anachronistic to many Americans. It was hard to commemorate the end of the war to end all wars, as the deadliest war in human history engulfed the world. Almost 4 times as many people died in World War II than in World War I, and even more unimaginable horrors were unleashed on the world. When Navy veteran Raymond Weeks returned home after World War II ended, he envisioned repurposing Armistice Day from its commemoration of the end of World War I to a National Veterans Day. The United States already had a day to honor and mourn all U.S. military personnel lost in service to the country, Decoration Day, or as it would become known, Memorial Day. But it did not have a day to honor all those who honorably served in the United States Armed Forces. So Mr. Weeks organized the first National Veterans Day event in Birmingham, Alabama on November 11, 1947. Mr. Weeks launched a campaign to rededicate November 11th as Veterans Day. In 1954, his efforts succeeded when Congress passed a bill changing the name of Armistice Day to Veterans Day. President Dwight Eisenhower, himself a World War I veteran, signed the bill into law and issued the first Veterans Day proclamation. Aside from a 7-year period in the 1970s, Veterans Day has been on November 11th every year. It is commemorated by parades and ceremonies in communities big and small across the United States, honoring veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. The National Veterans Day observance occurs at the Memorial Amphitheater built at the Tomb of the Unknowns and begins with the nation's tribute to its war dead, which is symbolized by the President laying a wreath at the tombs. In 2016, Congress passed and President Barack Obama signed into law the Veterans Day Moment of Silence Act, which calls on the people of the United States to observe 2 minutes of silence at 11:11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Veterans Day to honor the service and sacrifice of veterans throughout the history of the nation. All of us at Battleship Texas want to thank all veterans who have honorably served this country. It would not be the country it is today without your service in uniform and as civilians. I want to leave you with President Eisenhower's first Veterans Day proclamation. Whereas it has been our custom to commemorate November 11th, the anniversary of the ending of World War I, by paying tribute to the heroes of that tragic struggle by rededicating ourselves to the cause of peace, and whereas in the intervening years the United States has been involved in 2 other great military conflicts which have added millions of veterans, living and dead, to the honor rolls of this nation. And whereas the Congress passed a concurrent resolution on June 4, 1928, calling for the observance of November 11th with appropriate ceremonies, and later provided in an act approved May 13, 1938, that the 11th of November should be a legal holiday and be known as Armistice Day. Whereas, in order to expand the significance of that commemoration, and in order that a grateful nation may pay appropriate homage to the veterans of all its wars who have contributed so much to the preservation of this nation, the Congress, by an act approved June 1, 1954, changed the name of the holiday to Veterans Day. On that day, let us solemnly remember the sacrifices of those who fought so valiantly on the seas, in the air, and on foreign shores to preserve our heritage of freedom. And let us reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace, so that their efforts shall not have been in vain.